Welcome, everyone, to Know the Rules of the Game for the podcast for guiding real estate professionals. I am so excited. Desirée Patno is your host to bring you to a special edition today in light of the new environment. DeAnn Golden. Welcome, DeAnn. So happy to have you on our call today.
Great to be with you, Desiree. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. This is incredible, exciting times that we're living in right now and all the different things that we're being put to. And I wanted to get a little introduction of ourselves a little bit more. I am the CEO and the president of Women in Housing Real Estate Ecosystem. And also I am the president and CEO of Desirée Patno Enterprises, a real estate brokerage and advisor investor for Amicus Brain, AI for aging population, very prominent right now, obviously, what's going on. Also the chief strategic officer for Zulu Time, a publisher and connector through the wealth of knowledge across a vast economic footprint. And really what I want to dive in today with you, DeAnn, with the information that we have to deliver on how the real estate professional is changing, what we need to look at. And so some of the introduction I want to go over a little bit about your background. Your bio is unbelievable. It's 4 pages long. Your history of what you've given is incredible. And you are the senior VP of the managing broker at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia Properties. And you got your real estate license in 1995. I mean, that's, what are we looking at? 25 years now, at least? Pretty crazy. And well, the thing that's so cool is an MBA degree in commercial real estate marketing and strategic management. Very different. Usually they go on the residential side. So you've got this handles, right?
That was I took a different path into the commercial world, and it's served me well. And I enjoy now that I've been more into the residential side, helping people guide them home.
It's very cool. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. But one of the things I liked about your bio is that, and we sat on a panel, and thank you very much for all the support for NAWRB that you've given us over these years, and the leadership through Teresa Powell-Smith being our NDLC counsel. But in 1978, you started helping your mother prep for open houses, and the first year, mother Brenda Blanton became a realtor, then with Prudential, obviously, before Berkshire Hathaway bought them out. But and she's still in the business in her 40th year. That's incredible.
She is. She's still listing and selling at 78 years old.
You know, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about is that how family time. You know, here we are. Our headquarters here for NAWRB is sheltered at home. And we're home sheltered. It's been mandatory by Governor Newsom and several other different playgrounds right now that several other states have taken to the place, and you know, social distancing and all that stuff is being played into it. I really want to take into the, you know, we were talking just a couple days ago, and we said, what can we do to help? What we can do to frame this out for, you know, helping the real estate professionals, because the dynamics are changing so quickly between what the associations that we're part of say on a local, city, county, state, and federal level, what's going on with the, you know, our companies that we work for, in addition to what the federal government's saying and our local government's saying, and you know, the confusion, and how do we keep sustainable, and most importantly, what can and cannot we do, and so keeping some of that focus is, I think we came up with some incredible rules. You know, what are our guides? You know, what is number one? What's at our essence? More than ever, what can we do? So open it up, DeAnn. What can you help us with that?
Well, thank you. And I think just like you and everyone else in America and the world, we're all trying to figure it out. Something that I've been reflecting on is that, you know, in all of our careers of business owners and business people that are in the real estate business, whether directly or related, you know, we've always been guides, and we're often called upon at times that are life stressors for people. You know, many of the times when we're helping people buy and sell, it's sometimes due to happy reasons, sometimes due to sad reasons. You know, it may be a marriage, it may be a death, it may be a foreclosure, it may be a relocation, it may just be that you know, someone needs more space, or they're relocating with their job. And so, you know, whatever the reason's been up to this point in time, we're often called in at a time that is not a stress-free period, because you're also dealing with people's most important asset. So one of the things we've been guiding, you know, our team is to realize that while the framework that we're faced right now with is filled with a lot of unknowns, that is what we do every day. That is what we've done. That's what I've done for 25 years. And yes, that's what my mother has done for 40 years. And that's what so many dedicated real estate professionals do best. And so right now we just have to try to sift through fact and fiction, give clarity. And, you know, I say that in the sense of nothing has changed, in the essence of we are that trusted guide. We are the one that, whereas home is the most valuable asset, it's now become truly a safe haven, and the place where the government and healthcare workers are telling us is the safest place we can be right now in order to allow the social distancing and conquer this pandemic. So I think number one rule is we're guides. We've been guides. We are guides, and we will forever be guides. And we need to own on that and own that, and realize that, you know, there are people in our communities that are scared. We have clients right now that are concerned, you know, should they list, should they not, should they buy, should they not, should they, you know, take their home off the market, should they invest? And, you know, these are also questions that happen at any time in our history in the cyclical markets. Now there's just a supreme health focus. And there's also trying to kind of weed through some of the clutter as people are sitting at home, as I say, paralyzed with the news. And so I think that the second point that I would go ahead and make in terms of my three that I'm trying to stay focused on is, again, one, what I do, what our team does hasn't changed. We're guides. Number two, though, I think we have to take a little bit more inward look at taking care of ourselves. We have to guide ourselves right. We have to wake up in the morning with the right mindset. You know, we cannot turn on the news and fill it with paranoia and fear. You know, our agents, so is our CEO and many of the other leaders that I have the privilege of networking with. You know, wake up, meditate, exercise, you know, get something healthy, nourish your body, watch your diet, you know, take breaks, since many of us are working from home and don't do that normally. The mindset of being in one place and not in stimulus outside with others, we're having to learn to adapt and not withdraw. And then I can't encourage people enough, you know, the power of sleep. And I add one more S, and it's smile. I mean, there are clinical smiling and laughing that when we're sitting on Zoom calls all day, notice tomorrow, the next time you're on a Zoom call, which we've all had to pivot to, how many people are smiling? Now, of course, in a fear factor world right now, it's hard to smile, but I'm gonna tell you what, when we're all fearful, there's an emotional release and a stimulus that when you smile and when you make other people feel better, we're gonna get through this stronger. And we're going to get through this better. So it's kind of like when you're on a plane and what does the flight attendant say? You know, put oxygen on yourself before you can help others. So I think with my second point is, you know, you've got to guide yourself to a healthy mindset right now and stay healthy and put that oxygen mask on yourself so that then to the third point, then you can guide others. And that will be just a natural offshoot of, you know, what happens by taking care of yourself, and then you can take care of others.
I love it. Well, you just whipped through our three rules like before I even went through this. I love it. No, it's good because.
Hey, Desiree, you know, I don't even know that I call them rules today. They're guides. They're guidelines. We're all trying to find, what is that handbook? What is that playbook?
No, I get it. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, the joke is that I'm sitting here thinking as you're just going through this rapid fire, which I absolutely love because it shows the intensity, it shows the leadership, it shows the passion, the heart that you have to bring to this, but also it shows the clock that we're on, right? Boom, 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 moving at 100 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour now. You know, they say now that one of the things that just came out a couple of days ago, they walked to Santa Monica, to sidetrack here for a second. They walked through Santa Monica Mall, and the gentleman who owns one of the stores up on the second floor, who's in there with a security guard, and no one else was in this outdoor mall. And the idea is that he says, all these small businesses, all these people here how many are still going to be in business? Is as we, as an entrepreneur, which is a real estate agent professional, is how many as an entrepreneur have to work 4 times harder, 4 times smarter, 4 times more outreach to take care of what we're doing, how we're doing, and being more creative in what we're doing and where we're doing it, is exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about the speed and how we put it together, exactly how we're, as a guide, we've got to learn and adapt because who we're touching, where we're touching, why we're touching. So if we take a step back, when you were talking, I was sitting there going, well, Desirée, she's talking 25 years, Mom's 40 years. How long has it been you? I've been 30 years in the business. I'm actually celebrating, and I didn't even think about this. I got my license in 1990. So this will be my 30-year anniversary of me having my real estate license, besides owning my own brokerage. And so if you think about that, we are guides. And when I went to get my license, we were called the trusted advisor. Well, in today's world, that advisor comment can be very obviously an issue out there versus on a guide, because we were never trained to be everything and anything. You know, we don't have the law degree. We don't have the doctorate degree. We don't have the clinical, and we go down the line. We are those guides. And I think that's an incredible conversation and way to classify it as a guide versus an advisor, especially in these very dynamic times that no one's ever lived through, unless you lived through, the pandemic that happened back in the 30s. But fortunately, I'm not that old. To go through that space and see what that's like. So I love the ideas of saying that, how do we put this together and how do we make this better? And some of the things that I believe are so powerful as guides is to understand where to get the information, how to read the information. And, when we were kids, we would go to the library, and that was our only source of getting information, was getting that library book and getting it out there and open it up and say, oh my gosh, I got it, and retained it. So now if we can go, instead of saying just Google it, where is that information? Because it's happening so fast, on an hour, on a day, on a minute basis. And what you say in Atlanta and what we say here in Irvine, based on our state and what our navigation of the guides of, Newsom saying compared to your governor or the county of Orange where we're at versus in your county. And we could go on, and what our boards are doing and how we're being interpreted. That valuable information of sharing and leveraging those resources as a guide, and where to look and where to be involved in and how to navigate that, is unbelievable, so much powerful now than it ever has been. The magnification go with it. So rule number 1, we are your guides. How is that going to play into the essence and how we're going to help more than ever, talking to your local listing broker, dealing with the impact of what's going on, and then also all the agents that work under that incredible brokerage, what it's like to pull on. Why do you hang your license under a brokerage if you're not going to utilize and leverage that information and sharing, and to have that camaraderie to keep that space going and positivity up, right? I think that's fantastic. The safe haven. You mentioned about that as far as, owning a home, dealing with what is vault. One beautiful thing about having as a professional, the question gets brought up, do we buy, do we sell, do we keep it on the market? I think it's very powerful to look at when you're renting versus owning, the control of your own property, the sanctuary of ownership, what you can do in it, the peace of mind that it brings. We talk, you and I talk a lot about the single mothers, what it's like to be multitasking and having to have that place that's your own home and do as you please with inside it's your own core essence. You are a mother, I'm a mother, I have 4 children, you have 2, correct?
Yes, I have 2, and then 2 stepsons, so a total of 4 in our household.
And the ages?
They range from 25 down to 8. Obviously, the older 2 are out on their own, but have an 11-year-old here that's working through 6th grade online training for the first time ever. And then a 2nd grader who starts his day with his Zoom conference calls at 9 o'clock, all the way to being able to do PE via video at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So this has been a definite week of, let's say, adjustment. And
so the guidebook, as it just expanded to a mother that has children who being schooled from home, have never been schooled from home before. to running running a business to dealing with, you have what, 1,500 agents within the brokerage, correct?
Yes, we have 1,525 offices, and just an incredible network of leadership. And you know, Desiree, you said some things there that really kind of struck home with me. I actually looked up the word guide, you know, before we got on this conference call, because it's a word that we use. And when you really look at the definition, you know, it talks about that person that advises and shows the way to others. And it may be, you know, with their behavior, it may be with their life, it may be with their career, it may be with their own goals. And so as I really started to think about that, you know, a couple other thoughts came to my mind, was that in this time where there is a lack of clarity, you know, being able to communicate and over communicate, but communicate effectively is so fundamental. And what I'm really seeing happening, particularly, you know, the past, I'd say 10 days, is how at national levels, down to local levels, down to just even family and household units, you know, people are communicating again. They're talking. They're not just texting. They're picking up the phone. They're looking at each other on Zoom. They're sending FaceTime. There is a whole natural, an essence of being that is coming back. And majority of the calls are starting out, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
You know, instead of just have a great day, it's stay well, you know, be safe. I care about you. And so the whole compassion piece is coming alive again, in that whole humanity piece, which is so important, particularly to keeping confidence up, confidence within our own minds, confidence within the people that are in our circles, and then confidence within consumers. And you know, I think that is, we're learning how to better communicate, because we used to could take for granted being able to reach across the hall, or go into a boardroom, or be in a meeting, or sit at a closing table, or bring 70 people into an open house, or meet a client to go show a property and let them touch it, feel it, see it, smell it, have all the senses. And what is it? Communication is 7% words, you know, 38% tonality, and then 55% the interpersonal communication. And we're having to figure out how to communicate better in a collaborative environment. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, you know, the power of, that's what's happening with collaboration. There are so many mentors reaching out to people like myself and helping guide us, and helping guide our agents. And I was on a call yesterday that you know, some industry leaders were doing, and I've gone on Facebook Lives where there's other industry professionals that are just opening up, you know, their hearts and their minds to help us all kind of figure this out together and break down the walls. You know, homes are made of.
We have to. You know, exactly. And breaking down those walls and information is so important. And I'd like to highlight a couple of things you were talking about. The emotional section, the EQ environment, you know, cognitive issues, how that interact, and making positive attitude and having things going. And I love, if we take a step back to what you were talking about, is asking, you know, if you thank and be empathy into everything we're doing, and taking that moment to be present and to be and to hear that person, like you said, and picking up the phone and actually looking at that person in the face and saying hi, you know, when you're at home, versus then, hey, are you in the other room? Let me text you, versus getting up and going, talking to that person to make sure that they're still, you know, have that smile on their face is so important. And here in Irvine, we are still allowed to walk our dogs and go outside. Now, we can't go to the parks, but fortunately we have wide grass area next to our sidewalks. And so one of the things, I was just walking around on this past Saturday, I was coming back and, you know, walking the neighborhood. And I've lived here 26 years in the same home. And I have never met every neighbor. I don't know even who all lives in each house, which is really, really sad. I live in a very populous area to where the association, the PUD, the Planning and Development, has very heavy into children, because we're always moving, going somewhere, doing something. and we live in postage stamps. But the idea was I was coming back, and over half the street had the mothers and the children on the street. And everyone was keeping a social distance. They were all 10 feet, 20 feet away. But the joke was, as I'm walking down with my 3 little puppy girls, I was walking down, I said, welcome to get to know your neighbor party. I was walking down and going, right? And you think party, you're thinking getting together. But the idea is that I didn't stop and talk. I kept on walking, but I was talking the whole time I was walking because I wasn't running through the place. But every one of us got to say hi to each other. And isn't this a beautiful day? And oh my gosh, your kid's grown so much in the last time I've seen them. But I had never met the parent. Right. So this is exactly what you're saying. We are actually talking to each other. We're actually having that communication with each other.
And right. While you're obviously upholding, and we all are upholding, the social distancing protocol, something that I'm seeing this evolve into is a social differentiation. And what I mean by that is when many are retreating, as we should, and again, to being in our shelter in places and the orders that are coming, and just being very mindful to follow all the rules and guidelines, and upholding social distancing, this is an opportunity for social differentiation, just like that, where you're connecting more, whether instead of just retreating and falling into kind of a silo, if you will, being able to open up and reach out to more in innovative and safe ways. And I think, when we come out of this, which we will, those that are kind of defying separation by finding ways to socially differentiate themselves within the guidelines of social distancing, will have a whole new image in the minds of others, because again, that you said earlier, the compassion and the empathy and the care for fellow, humans is coming to the forefront. And, we just can't figure out enough ways to thank all the people that are on the front lines, that you and I were talking earlier, and the researchers and the doctors and the nurses and the, paramedics and the EMT people that are putting themselves in, line's way of exposed. But if it wasn't for them, I don't think we'll ever know how to truly say thank you. It's always so hard to thank first responders and people. But also
in any natural disaster, right? In any epidemic, I totally agree. How do you say thank you when you're, in time of war, in the time of a natural disaster, in the time of a pandemic? I mean, what do you say?
Sometimes, again, to go back to that, sometimes there may be no words in times like this, but being respectful and doing what we're asked of right now. And I'm so proud. We just got on March 23rd, going into effect on midnight of March 24th, was when the mayor of Atlanta did issue the 14-day shelter in place order. And so, up to this point, I know you were a little bit ahead of that. And so you've been talking what that means, and some of our outer cities have had that in place. And, we're all right now really trying to assess what this means to a deeper level. We've been being respectful. We pivoted the company that I work with, thanks again to our incredible leadership and CEO, who has just been in constant communication with our teams and keeping everyone engaged. And we offered over 20 hours of continuing, Zoom calls last week that agents from all over the company could come into and learn and redefine how they do virtual open houses and virtual showings, and how they will communicate with their clients during this, and how they will show that they care and are here for them, and again, guide buyers or sellers or just other people that we know into through this. I mean, there's a piece of guiding each other to see them.
Right. So I think, an exceptional leader like Berkshire Hathaway and several other great companies out there have taken advantage of this time, like you said, to advance technical utilization, their ideas, and bring it to how they can keep the momentum and the positivity going, and also to advance the bigger scope of the guide, expanding that guide from an economic standpoint, from as you learn, they learn, as we learn, and how we leverage each other. And that's one of the things that we wanted to jump on this opportunity to really expand the bigger picture here, which is, we are all, we talked 13 years ago going through the financial crisis of what, was back then the bailout of the banks was too big to fail. And now we're looking at the global aspect is that we're, again, too big to fail, but on a bigger scale that the public has to help the government has to help the public. And I think a great example of you talking about the guides is how, here, and, you as a commercial side would understand how, as going into buildings that have to be constructed, that you have the N95 mask. One of the things that they had is that here in Irvine, there was a company that had ordered truckloads of the N95 mask because they were developing this huge project. And so they had so much that when the urgent care came out and said that, we need to have the N95 mask, let's go to the dentist, let's go to the commercial building developers, let's go to every construction site we can. And so he donated all his masks that he just got on a shipment to all the hospitals here in Irvine and Orange County. So now they have enough to cover themselves for a while until hopefully they get mass produced from Haynes or whoever that's making the rest of the, public sector to contribute to it. Those are, to me, additional guides in the real estate sector that we as a community have always helped, whether it be Habitat Humanity, which I know you've been involved in for a long time, and several other different places, that this is not the first aspect of being a guide or helping, is you alluded to in the beginning that, whether the harmonious situation of the purpose of selling or buying is happiness or sad, depending on what the circumstances of why you're moving or have to sell or looking to buy. So as a guide, I'd like to jump into the guide yourself well first. So one of the things that we talked about being on this podcast is very detailed is how the rules are changing so quickly. Having from, we heard in New York that just came out to where I was blown away yesterday, came out and said that they cannot do cold calling till September 7th, that they're forbidden to go show properties, accompany people to go show properties, that they have to do everything, remotely. I know that a lot of people are taking their homes off the market because they don't want anyone walking in to the property. Yet if it's vacant, what does that look like? That they can easily go because there's so little inventory that's available to show. How are they doing alternative appraisals? They're not even going to properties right now. They're doing desktop appraisal services. How are they validating that you make X amount of money? They're doing alternative ways of verifying that. They're trying to figure out all those rules and regulations. So guiding yourself well first, I think is more than just, if we get down to the granular side of real estate, what do you see that's happening in Atlanta that we could tie into, and I can do a little bit on the West Coast here?
Well, yeah, I think, Desiree, one of the first things we all can do is use this time to sharpen our axe and to sharpen our saw, if you will, on some of our skills, first and foremost. I will tell you, I spent a better part of yesterday morning on a podcast that was, kind of sorting through fact and all the reasons why we're not headed for another housing crisis and crash. And, I think that's so important, particularly as real estate professionals. We understand, we've got the volatility in the stock market right now. We've got the uncertainty with the coronavirus, and some people are already starting to worry, are we headed for another crash? But when you look at key indicators and indices, as a real estate professional, when that conversation comes up, I need to be knowledgeable and our team needs to be knowledgeable to be able to give 3 or 4 points as to why it's different today versus then, despite this horrible disease, that is trying to stricken fear in the minds of people. I mean, in 2007, it was like, 8.2 months of supply. And today it's like 3.1. When you look at, just even things like what was happening with the appreciation back then. I mean, it was going out of the ceiling. I think in 2004, it topped up to about 12.5% with prices were soaring. And now we've been steadily going along at 4 or 5, 2017, we hit like 6.4, then we came back down. So we're back in more normal times in the cyclicalness of the real estate market. And so to me, and to your question, I think first and foremost, as much as real estate professionals can ensure that any information we're giving out is factual and substantiated,
Right.
and cite where you get that from. I was on a call today with leaders from across the city, and that was one of the things we echoed extremely was that as well as Atlanta real estate, right now we're being more of an amplifier of what is being released by the government or by health officials. I mean, we're not health experts, but instead of making up our rules, we need to be are driving people to the right resources. And I was very proud of our Atlanta Association. They've quickly put up a website that is kind of amassing all the factual information of what's happening city by city, county by county, because it's changing. And even when I was responding to some questions on a closed Facebook with my agents today, I asked for their love, mercy, and understanding. I wanted to pause for a minute to ensure that what I was giving them was factual information rather than a hearsay. And that I think is number 2, is that, everybody's talking right now. And sometimes listening is a very powerful place of position and presence with people. So
I think that's incredible, and I love your advice because, cite the source. That's always what's come from the media. The fact checking. I just did I've been talking to Liz Tumulty, who is a former president of CBS, and back then, if you think about it, every statistic was fact checked before it went live. All the networks got their data at the same time on the fact check. Now things are a little different. And because everyone thinks they're a journalist or thinks they're, breaking news or bringing the news to you and sharing someone else's news, not knowing if it's accurate or not. So citing the source, so you get credibility where they get credit for bringing the information. Hopefully you read the article before you even share the information, because obviously there's a credibility of who you are, what you're sharing, that you have that information. But the other thing I think is so powerful, I wanted to make sure that everyone on the call understands that the incredible wealth of information that DeAnn brings is she was the former president of the Atlanta Board of Realtors, which is over 10,000 agents. And just to have this go from you bring it during the time where the market was absolutely incredible, it was crazy, the market. Talk a little bit like that, what it was like in 2019 and now, right? It's a completely different advisory role in what you were doing back then.
Yeah, it certainly has. And if you told me this time last year, that we would be doing a Zoom conference call today, trying to figure out how to articulate what does it mean with now the shelter in place orders, and how do we guide our association members, and how do we continue to show all the incredible value, because so much of what we do through the association is lobbying, and that is coming to the forefront of how we're truly able to help protect, promote, and defend private property rights. And when people in the government are turning to us, and the Georgia Association of Realtors is writing letters to help our associates be able to conduct business. And here's a perfect example. So Showing Time, which is a wonderful resource many of us all use to track feedback on showings, put out it was a shocking graph, but I think all of us realized it. And the graph showed that tracking from the beginning of January, as you would expect, compared to last year, showings were going up and up and up and up. And then all of a sudden, come around March 9th, I think was one of the highest peak days. And whereas last year, that trajectory continued to go up and up and up, all of a sudden now it is plummeted on the graph as of, March 23rd. And statistics and graphs like that can really strike fear, but you have to be prepared to counter. And so what are we doing? We're educating people on how to do virtual showings. We're educating people on how to ensure that instead of having looky-seers come into homes, that, you know, the buyers are really qualified and they're serious. And rather than just having a parade come through, you know, they're taking all the correct protocol. And if it means for the next period of time that we've got to write contingencies where it'll be contingent upon them being able to see it down the road, that's
Mm-hmm.
just how we have to work together. And so, you know, what I've been, again, constantly fulfilled with is that wherever I go in this journey, in the real estate industry, people are willing to help each other. And that, I think,
Yes.
brings you to the essence of who we are. And so, again, on the association standpoint, we're all from different companies. We come together in our realtor blue, if you will. You know,
I love it.
Yeah, and you know, and politically we say we're you know, nonpartisan. So we wear our realtor purple for that. But there is a sense of collaboration. And look, we were supposed to have our 1,200 person banquet this past Saturday night. You know, that is they call it the Realtor Prom. It's, you know, the biggest gala. Companies come out. It's an incredible night of celebration for all the hard work. You get to see co-op agents that, you know, you've worked with. And we had to cancel it. And I mean, that was the right choice. And so, you know, how do then we celebrate? What do we do? We're using different methods to show, you know, that accolade. But at the end of the day, many of these agents, you know, they just want to be able to do their business, and the award or the plaque means less to them as being able to conduct business. And so I think the more we can try to give people ways that they can safely and securely, that's what we've got to do right now, because people need homes. And
they need homes, they need shelter, they need rental, they need, you know, homes, they need businesses. And I think that, to your case in point, I'd like to inject two things. You brought up two incredible topics. One is the advocacy and the lobbying work that you do, or the group does. And second thing is that how do we amplify the Miss Gala or the acknowledgement? You know, they'd rather have the book of business of clients versus then getting a plaque. So first and foremost, the FDIC reached out to us a couple days ago about asking us to respond. And we all know the FDIC, but it was very incredible, the 5 questions. We literally got an hour and a half to respond to this email. And it was about what concerns would you like the FDIC to address to banks, consumers, or the community partners? What actions would you like the FDIC to do to address your concerns? And how do you think the FDIC should engage to assist communities, consumers, and community partners in their respective geographies? And what materials should the FDIC share with the financial institutions, consumers, and community stakeholders that is appropriate given what is going on with COVID-19? And what current and future impact do you believe COVID-19 is going to have in your market? I mean, the fact that, you know, we've been responding to the RFIs, requests for information, requests for comments for past decade, but to have this kind of opportunity to really engage from the B2C versus just the B2B, to have that conversation from a lobbyist standpoint or from an advocacy standpoint is so powerful, because without the banking opportunities, we, as a real estate professional, as a guide, we need capital and all capacities, whether it's banking, whether it's loans, business, or commercial, and down the line. So that avenue, so I wanted to throw that out to you, DeAnn, you know, to have us collaborate on getting those questions to you, getting it through your sphere of influence, what that looks like, bring it back to us. Even though the deadline's passed, we're still in constant contact and almost daily on what this is looking like and what's that's being shaped out. So it's here, this perfect podcast is to bring know the rules of the game to the forefront. The second thing I wanted to bring out to you is, and I just lost my train of thought. This is really good. Do you remember what I asked? I can't remember. Go ahead.
Yes, and it was getting questions, and again, that's where I think as we're having to
the gala
situations with a different framework of questions, what's going to happen is the outcome of how we conduct business is going to improve. And I think the consumer experience is going to continue to grow because, you know, the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing, expect a different result. Well, now we've been put into an environment where we are having to break the mold, write the script again, you know, look at things differently. And it's having us all kind of scratch our heads and go, you know, why have we done some things this way? Well, just because. So, okay, well, now let this be the new cause for how we continue to define the experience for the consumer and being the purveyors of the American dream and guiding them home.
Okay.
And that's, you know.
Exactly. So take that framework, hold that thought real quick, everyone. So you talked about the gala and you talked about, you know, the book of business versus you getting a plaque. Right now going on, NAWRB has their nominations for women leaders in the 15 different categories from being a community leader. Every woman that gets recognized has to be a community leader in some capacity. So what better time? Who do you know that's an essential woman that's doing something in the community and giving back? Then from there would be a leader in, say, technology, a leader in corporate America, a leader in commercial, leader in residential. And there's so many different, that's open right now. So if you go to NAWRB.com, you'll see the 15 different leaders. So the idea is that in June, they're open until May 1st, but until June is we're going to be announcing. So why did I bring this up? Twofold. One, obviously, to understand the dynamics of bringing that leadership skills that we did with our council. But second is you're guiding, which is exactly why I'm so thrilled that we had this call today, this podcast today, is because that guidance is that if you're writing, and instead of saying, hey, look at me, you know, because I went to this event, this is the time to buckle down and to write a blog or write a letter or to write something that's going to showcase how good you are and what you know to give guidance to your clients and also to your team and also to your community. So by taking that time to write a blog, to respond to questions that you believe are going to the greater good, not just for you, but to put it out there is so powerful because that act of kindness is that people might see, but just showing case and sharing the resources is that guiding person that you brought up earlier. So I wanted to amplify that and making sure that you take advantage of that time to share your wealth of knowledge, because all of us would not be in this industry of helping others by being a real estate professional, whether it's residential or commercial, by giving that value, right?
Right, that's right. And I've just been, again, humbled and blown away over the past, you know, however many days we're into this now, of people that are reaching out, you know, and again, because Desiree, you devote so much of your time to helping, you know, women in business. You know, I will tell you, I have seen more, you know, of my friends and my colleagues that we're being authentic with the juggle, if you will, of trying to work from the home, or if we were still going in for a period of time safely, but then having the children at home, or having, you know, the family members or an extended family. We actually, you know, my mom has been staying with us because she had shelter in place. So there's a whole nother dynamic in the household, and the dogs and the cats, and, you know,
that multitasking DNA that we were given by God, that we were proven all these years that the women are above, they can handle us better than being the singular focus of men, has a whole new layer of meaning, right?
But you've never seen my son until, you know, yesterday on a podcast, who came, you know, or when we were doing our call, who came waddling up, you know, because he needed something. And so, you know, we're all human, and we all are trying to figure out how to get through this, and we're all going to make mistakes. But, you know, I'm really mindful too that the children are seeing how we respond to this. You know, our future leaders.
Oh yeah.
They're seeing how, and can you imagine in the minds of a child right now, you know, what is going through their heads? I think it's definitely going to prepare them. You know, I mean, my children can do Google and Zoom hangouts, you know, better than I probably could before these past weeks. And we're showing me how to do virtual backgrounds and, you know, stuff. It's been a very unique community time, but it's also where we try to set, game night. We try to, all devices down as it always should be when we're done with our work, so that we can have some true family time. And that is
No,
a time
I
to
go ahead.
reset, refocus, and reconnect in a lot of ways, not just with, our family, but close friends and with distance friends. I've been blown away with the number of people that I haven't heard from in a while that have just reached out to check on us. And I've tried to do the same thing. And so, I think the examples that we're seeing, this is what our future world will remember, and they'll reflect back on this, beyond what's on the news, beyond the next newscast, beyond the next, blurb. But what is that legacy that the people that are going, we'll always talk back. You remember when? You remember 2020? Do you remember the, COVID-19 times? Just like, do you remember 2008? Do you remember, where were you with the mortgage debacle? Where were you during some of these most pivotal times with any kind of life, tragedy or opportunity? And these are truly, these are extraordinary times, that I do think as we come on the outside of it, things will be different.
Yeah. Well, but the idea is that I think, look at the upswing. I was on a call, and this lady, this incredible lady that I so highly look up to, she says, Desirée, it's like I'm on vacation. I'm having Christmas. She says, I don't have to buy the gifts though. Everyone's home and we're cooking dinner for 9 people.
I know. I made dinner last night and my kids couldn't believe it. I actually did a home cooked meal on
No, I get it. And so one of the things I want to talk about before we get to the end of the podcast, which is so powerful, NAWRB is doing this thing, which you are, and this really ties into the guide. So I'm so thankful that we're doing this. Again, DeAnn, I'm so honored to have you on the call. During this time of stress and uncertainty, how are you using your innate capabilities and personal influence to make a positive impact? So often we are helping people we don't even know as they see, hear, or read about the act of kindness. And if I reiterate back to that writing, that Zoom, you are an example. You're a leader to your children, showing how you're adapting. That, yeah, okay, well, it wasn't that I didn't want to make dinner for you because I wasn't there. I couldn't. But now that I'm home, I'm actually doing it.
That's right. And engaging them to do it with me. We're actually taking advantage of this time. Time is the most precious thing that any of us have. And it's really making me, while, from morning to afternoon, I am fully engaged with the operations of the business. I've not had that commute time in Atlanta. That's an extra 2 hours out of my day that is right now being poured into the children. And if anyone's listening, knows my family, my story, I lost my husband 2 years ago. And so it's already been a journey, evolving into being a widow with small children and a working mom. And so I sure don't have all the answers. And I've been really leaning on other people for advice during this, and they're sharing recipes, and my daughter's very avid with cooking. And so she's been, FaceTiming and YouTubing with others to keep her active and engaged and keep the children, stimulated during the day, because it becomes a very long day when you can't really go outside other than to kind of walk around the block, social distance permissible. So keeping our sanity, and about 8:15, which it is right now Eastern time, they start to bounce off the walls after a full day.
So a pre-recorded podcast, secret, right? But no, they do, and that's all good, because I believe if you look at Jimmy Fallon and all the other ones, they're doing their newscasts is all doing it from home. And, they have the fake screens that, you were talking before I got on the call, Desirée, you can use Shutterstock to put your visuals behind you, because they're all now allowed to go into the studios to shoot their, all different news networks. But the idea is having these late night talk shows from home, having the kids. To me, I'm loving it more if I have it in the background, just have noise that's going on, because the idea is you're seeing real human elements. You're seeing real interaction other than preset, pre-staged, because you're getting a joy of being authentic and real. So thank you. So one of the things I would like to move on to a little bit is you have our our quote of the day, or tip of the day I like to share with the other women is show up every day. And you talked about it a little bit earlier about the fact that you're now using Zoom and FaceTime and video and all this stuff on the phone call, and your son comes up and say, hey, Mom, okay, this is how you do it. And you have older children, too, that are in their 20s. How has that changed your, we talked about, you briefed Noan about your, so sorry about your husband passing 2 years ago. How has that affect your ability to adapt, to show up every day, because you might not have all the answers to everything, and your children, you're leaning on your children to bring their everyday experiences to Mom and say, Mom, this is how you do it. What's that been up for you?
Thanks for bringing that up, because I find that my same affirmations that I've really relied on, they're posted on my bathroom mirror, and I've been looking at them as we've been going through this time, and I kept thinking, oh, well, maybe I need different quotes, a little different mindset, different things, because I'm seeing all kinds of great quotes. But then I was looking at it about 2 days ago. I said, no, you know what? The quotes for me that are true to my essence are the ones that I've got to lean in on right now and just figure out how to adopt. So like, for instance, one of my just number one quotes, anyone that knows me has seen it in my office, they see it, my children see it in our bathroom. It's show up every day. And now in this world, I am getting up actually 15 minutes earlier than normal, although I have less drive time, and I'm not able to go to the gym because the gym is closed, but I'm trying to get up, take on the day, be ready so that when I'm getting to engage with other people, my mindset's in the right place, because it's really easy to get in that mental cul-de-sac right now. It's really easy, I think, for people to want to stay in bed or stay in their pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
Up, we're getting dressed. We are doing check-ins with our staff at 8:30 with video so that we can see them. We can see where they're at. We can see that they're up and alert and that they, feel good. Likewise, with the children, to the next thing that you were talking about is, we're having to have kind of these family conversations. Is there things that Mom's doing when she's on a call for 6 hours, in conference calls? Am I interrupting their space? Their time is important. Right. Grace, my daughter, who's 11, has just really been very conscientious about getting her work done. And so she's having to kind of reach out and help her little brother sometimes, which that's not the easiest thing to have happen. But guess what? We're finding ways to celebrate each other when they do help each other. And I think we're just getting back to really spending time looking eye to eye, face to face, belly to belly, hand to hand, although we try to watch all the contact. But since we're here, there's a touch point that we're leaning into. And my other favorite quote always has been, and still is, it's one of the ones also in my bathroom, is, should, could, would, did. And I think that's a lot of us, right, as we're going through right now, so many people are going to think, I should have done this, I would have done that, I could have done that, but we need to be able to say we did it or did something. We won't be able to do everything, just like we won't be able to thank every first responder and every person that's making a difference. We won't be able to reach out to every person that's alone right now that, I wish I knew who they were, and that quick phone call to them to check in on them. But as many actions as we can take, set a goal, 5 things a day. To your point, if it's a blog, if it's calling 5 people that you think may be alone or maybe disconnecting, or just in a hard time. It's hard enough when the world's going on and there's things to get engaged with. Think about people that are withdrawing and retreating right now, and they don't have a community. And I know for us, going through to your last point, when we lost my husband, one of the biggest ways we found reward was by, instead of totally retreating to deal with grief, we tried to find engagement opportunities with others, because it just keeps your mind in a better spot. Because
I could not have amplified that even better, because the idea is that is isolation is the number one thing that can mentally and physically then go the West away in the aging population. We are all being subjective to that same environment that the isolation is how do we all have our mind, but we got to keep our mind and keep it active and keep it going. So by setting a goal and keeping, as you say, show up and be present, and to show up every day and be involved, and having timelines. Like today, I got to see you on the video and you had all your makeup, your hair done, beautifully dressed and presented. Like you said, you had a meeting at 8:30. I've been having some eye issues, so I haven't been putting my makeup on because I've been having swollen eyes. And so thankfully, this is not a podcast that you get to see me visually. But the idea is that we have to take the time to still go through that routine. We gained our hour or two, whatever that commute time is, and to spend time on us, whether it's working out and involved, and keep that going. So I just want to amplify everything that DeAnn has said, because these are the guiding principles. These are shared principles that we're bringing to the table to help each of us to, whether you're in a real estate community, we're all that guidance to help each other because we have lived different experiences. So thank you. So in closing, is there anything that we could bring to share with our incredible guests as we go through this with our podcast, our listeners on this incredible Know the Rules of the Game podcast? Would you like to share?
Just a big thank you to you, Desiree. What you do for our industry, for others, bring us factual information, you stimulate us, you connect us, and that is what the world's about. So I think just a big thank you to you for what you do for all of us.
Well, thank you very much. And I thank you so much for being part of NAWRB, being a guest on our show for this Know the Rules of the Game podcast. And to be very frank, the Know the Rules of the Game was trademarked last year to really amplify as a guiding light to connect the industries, to connect the globalization, what's being done, because at the end of the day, this is really about the quality of life, and we help leverage each other's expertise, our experiences. What we give is we're all going to have that humanity, which is what we really touched on today. So thank you very much. How do we get a hold of you, DeAnn? If they'd love to get a hold of you and to learn more about what you're doing and what you bring back to the community, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I'm more than happy. You can share my contact information, but also easy on LinkedIn. I think there's only 2 of us, and I am DeAnn Golden. That is the one in Georgia. So that's a great way to find me. But you're welcome to share my contact information and my email. And again, the more we share, the more we all collectively learn. And it's a powerful way that we can all get through this, and we will.
Thank you very much. And I am Desirée Patno, your host for Know the Rules of the Game for real estate guiding here today. We are live every Wednesday for our podcast to bring you Know the Rules of the Game. And if you'd like to be on our show or have some incredible ideas that you'd like to present for Know the Rules of the Game for 3 rules on a tip of the day, please let us know at info@NAWRB.com. Again, that's info@NAWRB.com. And thank you very much. And please be safe, and so we all can get better. And on the other side, we'll be okay. But take care right now. And thank you all for being on the call this morning. And thank you very much, DeAnn, and everyone have an incredible day and week. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.